Let us talk about obstacles. More specifically, in this video we want to briefly speak about the way how failures are usually handled and about the importance of learning from them. Then we'll delve into several common problems that an organization might encounter when trying to establish data science. We start off with the way how failures are handled. Overall, we notice a problematic failure culture in many companies where decisions are judged only in retrospect and are pretty much forced into the categories of good decisions and mistakes, with the mistakes then being sanctioned. The problem with that kind of failure culture is that we need both successes and failures in order to learn in any kind of complex setting. When I began my job as a data science consultant at Old World Computing, one of the first things I was told was that I'm allowed to make pretty much every mistake once. And I think that's a great mentality to have in general when it comes to learning from failure. But it's especially fitting for data science. Within one specific data science project, we can't know for certain which models and which preprocessing will work. But even more generally, before we even start with one data science project, we can only make an educated guess as to whether a specific use case can be successful or not before taking a deeper look into the problem and the data. Naturally, both the steps taken within a project as well as the use cases chosen when establishing data science are at least partially trial and error. Now let's take a closer look at some typical problems that we noticed in the establishment process and try to learn from them. Which problems occur can depend on the way how data science finds its way into the organization. Generally speaking, there are three different paths for hierarchical organizations, each with their own sets of motivations and common problems. One way is as a strategic decision from the upper management. Another way is as a decision on a departmental level in order to solve technical problems within that department. The last way is as an individual project to solve specific use cases. When the establishment is initiated from the side of the management, we've experienced that it's often done on a large scale with more than sufficient purchases of software and hardware, perhaps even hiring a whole team. The thought behind that is generally the more the better, and it's supposed to increase the productivity and help reaching the goal more quickly. However, the problem is that at this point there's barely any experience with data science within the organization, and the use cases are either completely unknown or still have to be specified. Partially, this is just a consequence of the lack of experience. Without any experience with data science, it is not really possible to correctly identify use cases. Without experience and without specific use cases, it is hardly possible to decide which exact software and hardware is ultimately necessary, and what kind of team. In other words, how big does a team have to be and which qualifications are really necessary, be it pure data science or IT qualifications, but also technical knowledge or knowledge about the structure of the organization. On top of that, there can be internal resistances. Employees from established departments might reject new methods or changes in general, especially if they don't see a benefit in them. Overall, these problems can not only lead to a high financial cost, but also potentially more time investment than expected. Now, if the initiative is on the departmental side, the intention is typically to solve some technical problems within the department. Therefore, the departments usually search for very specific solutions to their specific problems and perhaps assemble a small team or hire an external service provider to solve them. The most common problem that can arise this way is that the solution, be it the software, the hardware, or the expertise, is isolated in the sense that it can only be used by that one department. From this follows that subsequent projects and other departments don't profit from the solution and have the same costs again, even if there is a big overlap between the respective projects and their solutions. Also, if it's not a company-wide approach, but only on a departmental level, other departments can be incooperative, either because of competition between departments or simply because they are busy with their own problems, which can prohibit things like data access. And some use cases are simply impossible to solve without cross-departmental cooperation. Another problem can be the dependency on the small team or on an external service provider which was asked to solve this specific problem, because that just brings a higher risk. Due to these risks and repeated costs, the overall process can become very expensive this way. In individual projects, it's typically tried to solve a very specific use case. Therefore, they search for a specific and cheap solution. This means that they usually commission external service providers with solution and implementation and are themselves end users for that use case. The main problem here is that for these kinds of projects, it is highly unlikely that they go beyond a proof of concept. A productive deployment is often not really possible on this small scale, and the IT department may put a stop to the plan of an eventual deployment. Either way, the deployment for isolated projects of this size is usually not profitable. Such a proof of concept could in some cases still be worth it, say if it's used to gather first experiences. But here, only the external service provider learns anything really, which means that there's no sustainable knowledge development. Perhaps the end user has also learned a tiny bit, but when these projects of which they would actually benefit simply cannot succeed, they are often demotivated. Now we have an overview of the main obstacles that can derail your establishment process, so that you are more aware and hopefully don't repeat the mistakes that others have already made for you.